Good morning. Thank you for coming. We're here today to announce the results of an OIG investigation that identified numerous Sewage and Water Board employees selling brass fittings used in water meters. There was a criminal investigation and an administrative investigation. The Sewage and Water Board cooperated fully in both, and the Sewage and Water Board Director of Security participated in the administrative investigations. The thefts were detected entirely through computer analytics, which is the discovery and interpretation of meaningful patterns in data, and it relies on simultaneous application of statistics, software tools, and operations research. Unlike prior OIG investigations, there were no informants. OIG did not conduct any interviews until we already had evidence of the sales. The OIG is expanding its capability to employ these sophisticated detection tools and planning many more investigations using cyber analytics. We determined that between 2013 and 2016, these employees stole approximately 34,000 pounds of brass to scrap yards in the area. Most of it was new spare parts that cost the Sewage and Water Board about $526,000. The Executive Director of the Sewage and Water Board, Mr. Cedric Grant, will speak next. He'll be followed by Assistant IG Howard Schwartz, who will give you a detailed briefing. Then we'll take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Quattreville. Needless to say, I'm shocked and appalled by the brazenness of the crimes committed. My father used to tell me, all you have is your integrity. So trust is everything, and I've carried those words with me throughout my 45 years in public service. It's my honor to serve as Executive Director of Sewage and Water Board, having grown up about a mile from the Carrollton Water Plant. We're one of the largest water utilities in the South, with awesome responsibilities providing safe, reliable drinking water, wastewater, and drainage services to the city of New Orleans. The public relies on us, and they must trust us to do the right thing. Under my leadership, we're building a new Sewage and Water Board, one that has a zero tolerance for theft of public property or any violation of the public trust. Under no circumstance are employees permitted to appropriate, borrow, loan, remove, or otherwise convert Sewage and Water Board property for their personal use or gain. All individuals involved in this matter were terminated by me as soon as I was alerted in August of the final of these investigations. They will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, and we will pursue financial restitution. I want to thank the IG and the district attorney for working with us. We've cooperated fully throughout this investigation. The actions of these individuals tarnish the reputations of the hardworking employees who perform under challenging conditions at the Sewage and Water Board, and I will not stand for it. As a result of the criminal investigation, we've implemented significant changes to security and logistics to better ensure the types of malfeasance does not occur again. Today is a new day for the Sewage and Water Board, and we are committed to now more than ever delivering better results to the people of New Orleans. Over the past year, we've invested greatly in accountability and transparency measures. Since I've been appointed Executive Director, 80 individuals have been terminated as a result of these reforms and stricter policy enforcement. In addition, Sewage and Water Board has implemented significant changes to security and logistics policies and procedures as a result of this investigation. This includes the recent hiring of a permanent Deputy Director of Security and contracting with a new security firm to patrol and safeguard the Sewage and Water Board plants and facilities. This includes institutional controls over property, procurement, warehousing, and inventory. Furthermore, we've installed new video surveillance systems and enhanced fencing, locks, and intrusion detection. To prevent stolen materials like this from being sold, all Sewage and Water Board vendors must now emboss items like brass fittings with an appropriate Sewage and Water Board marker to ensure public identification of this government property. To more accurately track public resources, Sewage and Water Board is reviewing its data processing capabilities to better track what assets are being used in every project. And next we will launch a new work order management system that will have those controls in it as well. As a direct result of this criminal investigation, Sewage and Water Board is now implementing quarterly warehouse inventories and will be validating and reconciling its inventory annually. We have set an extremely high standard of integrity at the Sewage and Water Board, bringing this vital public utility into the 21st century. My board of directors is committed to this. Mayor Landrieu is committed to this. The old way of doing things is over at the Sewage and Water Board. Sewage and Water Board is now in the business of providing our residents a new level of customer service and to do our work more cost effectively and efficiently. And right now, we're looking for people to come on board that have this high sense of integrity and honesty, and so we're hiring, and we're looking for good people to come and work for us. Thank you, Mr. Quattreville.
Good morning. Let me give you some details on how we arrived here today. As the Inspector General said, to initiate an investigation in this office, the Inspector General's office, it's usually based on complaints, allegations, usually. And it comes from a variety of sources: city employees, contractors, vendors, a letter, telephone call, email, even sometimes investigative reports we see on TV or online. Any of those things can trigger an investigation, but that's not what happened in this case. This is the first time we had no complaints, no allegations. This was done completely through utilizing computer analytics. And the information we got from that told us that Sewage and Water Board employees were stealing large quantities of brass fittings that comprised residential water meters. We have basically the components of a residential water meter on the table right here, and and it's made of brass, and that's what the Sewerage and Water Board employees were stealing and selling to various scrap yards around New Orleans. With this information, we initiated separate but parallel investigations, and it's a distinction that's very important, that we keep them separate, administrative and criminal. And here's why. In administrative investigations, we have the authority by ordinance, the Inspector General's office does, to compel, to force city or Sewage and Water Board city employees to cooperate with our office. They have to, as a condition of employment, answer our questions. They have to cooperate, and they have to truthfully answer those questions, because lying can get them fired. Not answering questions can get them fired. But Sewage and Water Board employees have the same constitutional rights as every citizen does. They can't be compelled to give incriminating information against themselves. So we can't use that information from administrative inquiries in criminal prosecutions. So we keep them separate. We keep them separate in the office. We don't provide that information to the district attorney's office. It is not used against them. In fact, Sewage and Water Board employees sign a document when we do an administrative investigation saying what I just said, that the information they did, they have to do it, they have to talk to us, but it can't be used against them criminally. So the two investigations we did. The criminal investigation, the results of that were provided to the district attorney's office. And I'd like to thank the district attorney's office. They handled this for their cooperation, and they handled it in a very professional manner like they always do. In fact, last Friday, December 9th, they confirmed that arrest warrants have been issued for 10 Sewage and Water Board employees for theft of metals over $10,000 and malfeasance in office. Excuse me. The administrative investigation, and let me back up 1 second. When we found out about this, we contacted the Sewage and Water Board. In fact, my first call back in February of this year, we found out about this in January, was to the Sewage and Water Board's legal counsel. And then we spoke with Mr. Grant and his staff. And from the inception, everyone under Mr. Grant included and under him cooperated fully. They didn't say this didn't happen, it's not going on. They didn't downplay it. They took immediate action. And they gave us access to all the documents we needed, the warehouse, their employees, invoices. That cooperation led to a successful investigation. I'd like to thank you and your staff for that cooperation. That's how the system should work. So besides the criminal investigation, we did an administrative investigation, and Mr. Grant's director of security participated in that. The results of the administrative investigations were provided to the Sewage and Water Board, and Mr. Grant, as he said, all 10 employees were either fired or resigned under investigation. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the brass and the amounts and the dollar figures involved. As I said, this is the brass fittings, the components of the residential water meters. The photograph to my left, your right, is a surveillance photograph of a sewage and water board truck with those brass fittings on the truck, was what you would expect to see. The photograph to my right, your left, is the top photograph. If you're wondering, how do we know that sewerage and water board employees stole this brass and sold it to scrapyards, and how do we know it was sewage and water board brass? Simply, we have photographs like this of every single transaction that sewage and water board employees took that brass to scrapyards and sold it. We have photographs of the brass, we have photographs of the transaction, we have photographs of the sewage and water board employees, their driver's license and their photograph, and they signed a document at each scrapyard saying this was their property when they sold it. That's how we knew. Now the brass is, for the most part, the majority is shiny, new inventory. And as you can see, this is one of dozens and dozens and dozens of pictures we have of the transactions. And if you look closely at the photographs, or look at the blow up on the bottom of it, you can see it is shiny, new brass. It's new inventory. There's a couple pieces in the mix up top where it's oxidized. You can tell it came from the ground, but the majority of it came from new inventory. Now, there is no brass mine in New Orleans. There's only one place to get this, and that's Sewage and Water Board. It's made exclusively for the Sewage and Water Board, these components, by two companies, a company called Ford, a company called McDonald's. They're out of Iowa and Indiana. They have a exclusive distributorship to the Sewage and Water Board. This is their property. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the amounts and the figures. And the photograph to my right is a completed water meter, how it looks, and the brass itself, the components of it. And why I made a distinction of its new shiny brass, new inventory. There's a difference. If the Sewage and Water Board employees stole so much brass, as the Inspector General said, it was over 34,000 pounds. And it's a tough figure to kind of understand the amount of 34,000 pounds of brand new, most of it being brand new brass. Let me put it in perspective for you. If you look at the table here, that is, or this photograph, that's basically the components of a residential water meter. The employees stole so much brass that if they had that in inventory and they used it to install brand new water meters in people's homes, they could install brand new water meters in over 6,300 homes. That's how much brass they stole. Now the amounts. It started in 2013 is when we started tracking it, went back and were able to find. And the first year was about 800 pounds of brass. Second year in 2014 was about 1,800 pounds. In 2015, it went to almost 24,000 pounds of brass. Now normally we contacted the Sewerage and Water Board very early on in this because we didn't want them to suffer any more losses than they already did. Sewage and Water Board's credit, when we contacted them in February, they took immediate action. They basically stopped this from happening, any more stealing, any more theft of the brass. Some did occur, but very small amounts. It trickled in over the next few months. We had an occasional employee go sell some brass, but by and large, they stopped it from happening. If they hadn't taken that action when we notified them, in 2016, you can say 7,800 pounds. They were on track to steal over 40,000 pounds. That would have been about an $800,000 loss that they prevented from stopping this. As it sits, as it is, when they sell brass to the scrapyards, depending on the commercial value of brass, they get paid anywhere from $1 to $1.10 a pound. Sewage and Water Board pays $15.30 a pound for this brass, for the fittings. So it cost the Sewage and Water Board about $526,000, and in total, the employees received $41,000. Now, as a cautionary or deterrent for anyone thinking to do this, the Inspector General's office has the capability to identify where city property is being sold, and we'll take action on that. And it's not all employees. There's only a few, most employees are good, hardworking people. It's only a few, but those few should be on notice that in the case of the Sewage and Water Board, they're going to be criminally liable, not just for the amount they got when they sold it to the scrapyard. So if they stole 1,000 pounds of brass, sold it to a scrapyard, and they got about $1,000, they're not going to be criminally responsible. They are going to be criminally liable for not the $1,000, but for $15,300 that the Sewage and Water Board paid for the brass. So this, excuse me, this should be a very effective deterrent. And I started out saying this is how the system should work. We identified it, the Inspector General's office. We brought it to the attention of the head of the Sewage and Water Board, who took immediate action, and through their cooperation, we were able to come to a successful conclusion. Now, there are other employees who were involved in this. I can't give you any details, numbers, or anything else because these investigations are ongoing. Thank you.
Happy to take your question.
You want to go back behind the?
Yeah.
We've all seen examples of, smaller examples throughout the years of Sewage and Water Board employees taking equipment and stuff. What changed where it became kind of a ring like this, where it was organized and a group of people all kind of working in concert? And what was it about the way that it worked that allowed them to pull that off?
Well, I'm not so sure it was organized. It's possible, but we have no evidence of that, right?
So would
Okay.
you not describe this as a ring?
No, no. Obviously, word got around because of the increase you see for 2015. Word spread that, this was a way to pick up some money.
But the reason that it wouldn't have been easily detected is that they normally would be putting this material on their truck and it wouldn't be easily detectable. Is that right? Or can you describe
No,
that a
no.
little bit?
We can detect any property pawned or scrapped pawn shop or scrapyard in the area, in fact, in the United States. But that's how this was discovered. We checked. And, what it's really about, and this agency has, over the past had its problems. Mr. Grant's trying to fix them. But this is just another problem that we've encountered, and now they've taken action. And the thing that's most important is simply locking stuff up and having controls that prevent people from doing things they shouldn't do, or alert supervisors that there's something going on. And that's the purpose of internal controls. And so Mr. Grant, I think, alluded to some more controls that have been put in place, such as cameras, and I'll let him talk to that. But it's going to stop, and city employees and contractors and vendors should be aware that we have these tools, and we examine what they do, and when we see a meaningful pattern, we begin to investigate, and we will continue to do that. And everybody who gets paid by the city is subject to that oversight.
With
Any supervisors among those arrested, or is this just people who sold scrap metal?
No supervisors.
Or any supervisors been disciplined or held to account for this?
Mr. Grant would have to answer that.
with inventory like this laying around and the numbers that you guys have shown, on a scale of 1 to 10, how brazen and or stupid was something like this for employees to try to do?
Well, it was both, but yeah, it's just you can't get away with something like that for years and years and years. People are going to notice. But it was brazen, but it was also dumb because now there are arrest warrants for 10 of these folks, and another group where the investigation continues. And so I'm hopeful, and thank the district attorney's office for working with us. I'm hopeful that everyone will see what happened to these 10 folks and decide that's not something they want to attempt.
This is, but the scrap or did they?
Ultimately, yes. I think 4 out of 5 or whatever, something like that, cooperated. There was one that had some hesitation, but a subpoena from the court was enforced, and the court enforced the subpoena, and they provided the information we sought after that.
Can you give us a sense of how much the employees would walk away with on these transactions? Was it a couple $100s or much less than that?
As I said, it's a huge difference. It's like exchange, you got $15 and you're going to exchange it for $1. That's about the ratio, because they pay $15.30, they sell it for about $1 a pound.
And how much would they take during each transaction?
Anywhere from 50, 60 pounds up to several hundred. And 20, 30, 50, I mean, it ran the gamut of how many different transactions. An individual may do ultimately 1,000 or 2,000 pounds. Somebody may do as little as 50 to 100 pounds.
It seems like they only got caught, Howard, because they took so much. Like, when we'd see these one-offs before, and they wouldn't really get caught.
If we would have done this a couple years ago, we would have caught it if they did 50 pounds or 100 pounds. That's not what triggered it. The amount was not what triggered it.
Can you talk a little bit more about the computer analytics and how specifically it was caught?
No. No, it's an ongoing technique, ongoing investigation. We're not going to comment on that.
This may be a question, Mr. Grant, but did you interview employees? Did they give you any kind of reason, or not that there isn't any logic to it, but any kind of reason or logic, or was it just kind of a crime of opportunity?
Well, Travis, let me say a couple of things. One is that just as the Inspector General continues his investigation, so do I. Okay, and so yeah, supervisors may well find themselves reprimanded as a part of this. Two, to answer your question more directly, what basically I'm dealing with here is a culture where people think they can do things till they can't. I mean, you know, again, I have totally changed the organization in relation to how it's managed. When I took office, the director of security of the Sewerage and Water Board was an outside contractor. That doesn't work for me. So I have a full-time security director that's a 30-year police veteran that is going to ensure the integrity. We're talking about this today, but this is the water system in the city of New Orleans. This is a highly critical asset that needs to be secured. Okay, I also was dissatisfied with my contracted security. We reprocured it and raised the level of security to another standard. We've also installed security cameras and created additional inventory controls, all of which absolutely need to be done anyway with things that I want my work program to do. This assists me in accelerating those efforts greatly.
Mr. Grant, is it normal, I just got to get this straight, is it normal for the workers to drive off with these fittings and stuff on their trucks, and that's why it wouldn't have been caught earlier?
Well, David, of course, everybody goes out every morning with a certain number of work orders that they're supposed to go do work, and they take the inventory they need to do that. I've instituted inventory controls where you count it coming in, you count it going out. And so everything I can do to make this work, I have. But again, I'm taking over an organization that, needs to adjust its practices, and I'm addressing everything in policy, in procedure, in action. And I certainly really appreciate, quite honestly, that we now have this technology available to us that can help us do things. And I don't think there's going to be nearly one else, but to Travis's point, brazen and dumb, yeah. Okay? And I suggest that, quite honestly, what I'm looking for is people that have integrity and have the ability to work to provide the services that we need to provide to the people of New Orleans.
That was the last question. Thank you.
All right?
Can you get the positions of the people,
Thank you
the
so
names
much.
and positions of the people? Ed, you're not releasing the names of the people who are...
No, you would have to speak to the district attorney's office.
But those charges were filed, right?
I understand that arrest warrants have been issued.
The city employees have been fired, right?
That's what Mr. Grant said.
You're not releasing the names?
No, but I'm sure you could get them from Mr. Grant's organization. Sure. So there it was. Bold and dumb. He's right.
So can you just say, just again, what we're looking at on these photos?
Howard.
I'm a little dumb in this area.
This is one of many photographs from one of the scrap yards that a sewage and water board employee sold the brass. The bottom part of that is a close-up to show that most of it's brand-new material, brand-new brass, or new inventory. This is a residential water meter, how it looks when it's completed. That's components of it. This is just the facts and figures of it, of the chart, and the other picture was just how it looked on the back of a water truck. There's nothing unusual about that picture. We just showing it as an example of the brass going out on a truck. And this is the water meter, the components of it, and some of the water meters have different sizes depending on the needs, but that's the basic components of a water meter.
Is there any regress or problems that are going to arise for the scrap yards? Can they be charged with anything for receiving stolen material?
I mean, potentially yes, but the investigation is ongoing, so no, I can't comment on that.
When did the investigation start?
January of this year.
Howard, there's some confusion again about it. All 10 have been charged
Yes.
formally?
The 10 sewage and water board employees, arrest warrants have been issued for them. So when they get picked up, then they'll be arraigned. Then they'll be charged.
Okay, so they haven't actually been arrested yet, they just warrants out.
As of, honestly, I don't know, I'm not sure. As of today, I don't know. Don't know the results. I know the arrest warrants were issued on Friday, December 9th.
Is there a reason why I didn't go any further back than 2015? Because the records weren't there or weren't digital?
Since it's ongoing, I'm not gonna answer that. It's a good question, though.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thanks, everybody.